I hate it when everybody's just a black hole out there. So I'm Barb Fankhauser, and I am the president of the Portland Storytellers Guild, and I am so happy to see all of these people here. This is fabulous. How many are here for the first time? Can you raise your hand? Oh, whoa, nice, nice, yeah. So thank you so much for coming, and thank all of our return people, too, for coming, because, yeah, without you all, we'd be talking to ourselves, as I say. So just a little housekeeping first. Please, everybody, turn off your cell phones. And the bathrooms, let me tell you the bathrooms. You go out this curtain over here and you go, there's a stairway there. If you go up the stairway, there's a bathroom at the top of the stairs. And if you go past the stairway and around the corner, there's another bathroom there. And there's one over here, which we recommend not using during the show because we will stop the show and wait, okay? Okay. I want to thank everybody, all the volunteers here at Artichoke who just are doing such a fabulous job, giving us this, allowing us to use their space and just being fabulous hosts. There's Chris at the bar. Yes, yes. And there's Olivia and Carly are over there on our sound and our lighting, and fabulous. And Steve was the gentleman at the door that showed you all in, and we're just so grateful for all of them. And I want to, this is, Artichoke is such a special place, and we love it, and we want to support it. So please, at intermission, do buy drinks and snacks and say, keep Chris busy. The other thing is, everybody, if you haven't filled out a card yet for our drawing, if you want to make sure you get that done and get it to me put it in the hat. There's a hat you put it in. And then I draw it at intermission, and whoever wins can get 2 free tickets for next month's show. And so it's a valuable thing, and we want you to partake in it. Okay, now I'm going to come to the official welcome for Tellabration. And Portland Storytellers Guild this is an annual thing, and it's pretty special. It's going to be a little background on it. This is the 36th Tellabration. And it started in 1988 and in Connecticut. And a fellow by the name of J.G. Pinkerton had this idea to start telling stories in one time zone and then move to the next time zone and the next time zone. And in the first year, they did it in Connecticut. The second year, Texas and Missouri joined in. And here we are 36 years later, and it goes around the world. All the continents, 40 states. It's a really marvelous thing. I just picture this river of stories going around the world. But here's the little caveat, because Portland loves to be weird, and we support that, Actually, the official Tellabration is next Saturday, so we are kind of like kicking it off a little early, okay? So with that, I'm going to read the official Tellabration proclamation. But the thing about a proclamation is that a proper proclamation needs a fanfare, and I didn't think ahead of time to collect those little toilet paper tubes. So I'm going to ask everybody to just sort of use your hands and give me a fanfare for the proclamation, okay? So, God, that was fabulous. Okay. In the name of storytelling, Saturday, November 18th, except in Portland, Oregon, where Saturday, November 9th, is hereby proclaimed to be Tellabration 2024, the world event of storytelling across 6 continents in 40 states and 9 countries, from Sacramento to Savannah, Boise to Barcelona, West Virginia to West Indies, Portland, Maine to Portland, Oregon. Over 300 audiences will gather for this spectacular storytelling event. Without further delay, in joy and anticipation, let the stories begin. And it is my great pleasure to start off with a rousing bit of music from Rick Huddle.
alligator. Ooh. And now I have a new vision for a perfect friend. He's got muddy paws, kind of a musty smell. He's got teeth, but he doesn't bite. He's only like 83% safe. But he's 100% fun. Well, I'm going to go make a cheesecake for my new friend, so we'll see you later. Bye. Thanks. So now I have a song. This is the song about Scaredy also, and may sound a little familiar to you. It's a parody of a rock song. Let's see. So there's a very simple chorus. I think you'll pick it up as we go along. Feel free to join in and sing along with the chorus. And then I have a challenge for you too. The first challenge, there's two challenges. The first one is to sing right. And that's kind of a call and response, but there's like a 4-beat wait. So it's go right, 2, 3, 4, right. Okay? Got it? Right, 2, 3, 4. Right. Yeah, okay, good. You got it. Good. And then the next one, I'm not going to warn you about too much or prep you, but it's to sing Leonard Bernstein when it comes around, okay? So just see if you can get it. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 4. That's great, it starts with a lemonade. Heinous fish and chest pain. Scared a squirrel is so afraid. Low on the food chain. Don't wanna be slain. Lives in the weeds, bunny with big teeth. Should have seen the fish, yes, no, maybe no. Hat from the batter's torn off the Trevor's had a spy with your eye. Completely safe friend, he's squeaky clean. It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? It's about time. What's in the mirror for a hugger in a herd? Breathing down your neck. Dog chasing around, bushes around, bounce around, circle nothing left to do but play dead. Oh no, wow, here, man, this is so weird. Why won't he get out of here? Point to the name tag, smile, and we're okay. Right, 2, 3, 4. Julie dog ain't gonna bite, and you're feeling pretty psyched. It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? It's K9, it's K9. Now all night, gonna seek, gonna hide. Who will you find? You and your mate, 83% safe. Running around together, maybe eat a cheesecake. Muddy balls, dog is smelling germs, but who cares, right? It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? You threw me off. It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? It's a friend for the squirrel, don't you know it? It's K9, it's K9. Thanks, y'all. Thanks so much. Thanks for singing along. All right, and next up, please put your hands together for Janice Alexander.
Thanks. I was going to jump off the stage. Okay. Long, long ago, in real life, when I was a lot younger, my husband worked in the shipyards. We had 1 car and 3 kids, ages 9, 5, and 1.5. Now, my husband needed the car to go to work. And because he worked swing shift, that meant after school, dinner, bath, bedtime. I was on my own pretty much, yeah, with no transportation. Now, this one particular summer night, it was 10 o'clock, and my 9-year-old son was asleep on the couch. The little ones were asleep in their beds at last. And in that peaceful moment, I remembered. There was a box of instant chocolate pudding in the cupboard. Into the kitchen, out comes the bowl, the wooden spoon. I poured in the last of the milk, got the box, tore it open, pulled out the little bag. I did notice there was a little bit of instant chocolate pudding powder on the outside of the bag. Odd. But in it went, and I stirred and stirred, and I'm stirring the pudding, and I'm thinking, powder on the outside of the bag, that was weird. Now, I should tell you, back in those days, there was no tamper-evident packaging at all. There was an outer wrap, there was no outer wrap, rather, and the little plastic piece to unwind before you open, and no film, the little foil thing to pull back. Now, the thing was, there had been a big story on the news. Someone apparently had gone into the store and randomly poisoned capsules of Tylenol. It was terrible, and some people died. They were still investigating, but they were warning the public. It's like, don't eat anything that looks like it's been tampered with. I'm stirring the pudding, and I'm thinking, how did that powder get on the outside of the bag? I wonder if the pudding's okay. Well, it tastes okay. That was the last of the milk. I don't want to waste it. I want a second opinion. I scooped up a spoonful of pudding and went into the living room. Honey, wake up. Taste this and see if it's okay. And he's going, and he wouldn't wake up. Back in the kitchen, I pushed that bowl of pudding off to the side, and I'll just wash some dishes for a while. So I'm standing there, and I'm washing the dishes. And I'm thinking, what if it had been tampered with? I tried to get my son to taste it. Oh, bad mom. What was I thinking? And then it's like, wait a minute. I tasted it. Did I eat poison? What should I do? I was like, oh, and then I felt my heart beginning to speed up. And my breath got a little bit shuddery. And I thought, what is this? It's just worry. All I have to do is calm down. So there I am, washing the dishes calmly. And I'm thinking, well, if it was poisoned, what should I do? I should call. I don't have anybody to call to come and watch the kids. I am not calling my husband at work. He's in the shipyards. It means I'd have to call. It'd be a big deal and embarrassing. I'd have to call the office. They'd radio to the ship. They'd have to go find him. He'd put all his stuff away, get down off the ship, come to the office, and there I'd be saying something like, honey, I think I might have accidentally, maybe, tasted some poisoned pudding. Could you leave work and spend an hour driving home just in case? And they would want to know why he left. Not going there, just not gonna do that. I just have to know. All I have to do is be calm. And if I'm calm, then I just have to know, have I been poisoned or not? So I can figure out what to do. Oh. And so I'm breathing and I'm being calm. And I'm thinking, well, if I have really been poisoned, I should probably call an ambulance. It's too expensive. Oh, no, no. Oh, wait. My heart's beating even faster again. And I feel a coldness creeping down my gut. I was like, oh, no, 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 no. Is this the poison? Is this it? No. It's just nerves. All I have to do is be calm, and I will be able to tell. Gosh, I wonder if maybe I should wake my son up and tell him what to do in case I'm actually dying. You know, who to call, what to say. It's like, boy, if I'm gone, who's going to look after the kids? Maybe I should wake them up and say goodbye. I was like, oh, my breathing is ragged now. I feel dizzy. I'm feeling really dizzy. Not calm, not calm. Stop. This is just too crazy. It's too crazy. Maybe if I go sit outside on the porch. So I'm outside, sitting on the porch, calming myself, sort of. And it comes to me. My friend Nancy is an ER nurse, and she's on duty. I call the ER, and I ask them to get her. I said, this is her friend Janice, and I really need to talk to her. Will they go find her? She gets on the line. Janice, what's the matter? Oh, and it all comes out. I tell her about the powder on the outside of that package and how I tasted it, and then all those feelings I had, and I just didn't know what to do because I couldn't calm down enough to see if I'd been poisoned. She's quiet for a minute, and then she says, Janice, how long ago did you taste the pudding? Well, 20 minutes. Well, Janice, if it was poisoned with cyanide like in the news, you'd already be dead. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, please welcome Eric Foxman.
Thanks. Nice. I guess we'll go this way. Most of you don't know me. Most of you don't know that I've been a pharmacist. But none of you know that all of my adult life, I have been absolutely fascinated by quirks. You know, those idiosyncratic behaviors and mannerisms and foibles that help to define each and every single one of us as a unique, independent, and different human being. And because of that interest, I spent a lot of time studying and working on knowing as much as I possibly could and cataloging that for posterity. In fact, out of my work, I have to say that I'm very proud of the fact that I was given an honorary doctorate. I'm one of only a handful of people around the entire world that is allowed to use the letters DQ after my name because I am a doctor of quirkology. You sound jealous to me. Out of all my work, and I've interviewed over 3,000 people, I've recorded all of their quirks, I have cataloged, indexed, and analyzed them, and I have put together a report on this, which I am so happy to say is about to be published in the spring quarterly issue of Parapsychology Research Reviews. I know all of you are going to want to read that issue. Write down in your calendars right now, it's coming out on April 1st, 2025. You'll be able to read it then. But I'm going to give you a little hint. What I've discovered, and I've been able to prove conclusively, and have had analyzed statistically by 3 different research organizations, is that all human quirks fall into one of 2 classifications. They are either voluntary quirks or involuntary quirks. Now, I could try to explain the difference between them, and voluntary quirks are very, very difficult to do that with without getting into all kinds of technical, shall we say, jargon. So instead, let me give you examples of each. And by coincidence, I happen to have 2 quirks myself, one of which falls into each of these 2 categories. So tonight, I can speak to you not only as a professional, but also personally. My voluntary quirk is that I love to read in my local paper, the police blotter. Now, for those of you who don't know the police blotter, if you were unfortunate enough to grow up in a large urban area and you didn't have one, it's these little snippets of information saying what the police department has done over the previous week. It's usually each of the snippets 2 or 3 sentences long. None of those are significant enough or newsworthy enough to end up being in a newspaper column itself. But altogether, when you read them, especially if you read them over time, you get this wonderful picture of the characteristics and the quirkiness of your local community. And so let me give you just 3 samples. A man called to report that months ago he had made a casserole for his neighbor and sometimes girlfriend, and in the intervening months she had not returned the dish. Police spoke with both parties and offered options and advice. Options and advice. I just absolutely love that term. It's such a fertile ground in which one's imagination can grow, especially if you're a and they lived happily ever after kind of storyteller like I am. Now, none of these things end up being in the police blotter. You only get the little snippet. But I could just imagine that these 2, the casserole maker and the recipient of the casserole, they had traded casseroles over time in an increasingly intimate and romantic series of dinners, which ended up in a wedding that was followed by a potluck reception featuring BYOC, bring your own casserole. But more importantly, that tells me that my police department, which is all set to be able to deal with heinous felonies and minor misdemeanors, also has the sensitivity and the delicacy to deal with relationship problems. Do you remember 7, 8 years ago, we had that ice and snowstorm that virtually paralyzed Portland for a few days? The following week in the police blotter, there appeared the following. Several reports were received indicating that an older, balding man wearing glasses and a goatee was seen running down the middle of Locust Road in the snow, stark naked. Police searched the area and were unable to locate the alleged perpetrator. After interviewing a number of eyewitnesses, they were unable to obtain any additional identifying information because, as one woman said, "But officer, I wasn't looking at his face." And then from this past summer, a resident of River Road said that his neighbor's flock of chickens were coming into his property and were spending time scratching and pecking at the seedlings in his vegetable garden. Police spoke with both parties and offered options and advice. Now, I don't know about you, but it makes me feel so comforted knowing that my police department has the training to deal with chicken conflict resolutions. Now, that's an example, my wanting to read the police blotter, of a voluntary quirk. And it's voluntary because I choose to do it. I choose when I do it. I choose how frequently I do it. I choose the circumstances under which I do it. And that word choose is actually really important in helping to make the distinction between these two different classifications. Because with the voluntary, you choose it. With the involuntary, it chooses you. And my involuntary quirk is the way in which I sneeze. When I sneeze, it's always 3 sneezes, and it's always the same rhythm. That first inhalation, chew, chew, pause, chew. Always the same. Sneeze, sneeze, pause, sneeze. You know, people have those staccato, machine gun-like, high-pitched sneezes. Achoo, 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 achoo. Or those who have those declamatory, explosive sneezes. Not me. Sneeze, sneeze, pause, sneeze. And it's always like that. So much so that it was only a few months after getting married that my wife knew the pattern, second nature to her. So much so that we'd be sitting having a discussion and she could be in the middle of a sentence, choo, choo, pause, choo, and she'd continue as if no time had elapsed in between. And that's the way it's been for over 30 years, until a couple of months ago, I sneezed twice. We were sitting there at the table, we were talking, 2 sneezes, and she waited, and waited, and waited, and waited, and then I realized what was happening. And I said, no, that's it, just 2 sneezes. And her eyes opened wide. She leaned back, staring at me. And as she did so, I could see deep into her eyes, and I could see exactly what she was thinking. Who are you, and what have you done with my husband? And in that moment, I knew exactly what the following week I was going to read in the police blotter. A woman called to report that someone or something had taken over her husband's body. How did she know? She was asked, and she replied, because he sneezed. Officers offered options and advice. Now, please welcome up onto our platform here Will Hornyak, a storyteller, a mentor, and a good friend for all of us.
I knew Eric was quirky, but I had no idea. You've outdone yourself, my friend. A story from ancient Ireland. In the long ago time, there was a god whose name was the Dagda. And the Dagda arrived with his tribe, the Tuatha De Danann, to Ireland in their favorite mode of transportation, a cloud. That's how they arrived. The Dagda brought 3 possessions, 3 gifts to Ireland. And the first was his cauldron. He loved to cook. And he loved to cook because he loved to eat. Anybody here like to eat? I mean, really like to eat? The Dagda was always making up great food, and the wind would blow, and it would carry the scent through hill and dale, and people would come in droves. And the thing about the cauldron was it fed everyone who came, but it always brimmed full, because that was the nature of his spirit. The second thing he brought was a weapon, a club. Now, most of the men back then, they used spears and swords, but the Dagda was old school, right? Back then, they just called it school. It was that long ago. It was this enormous club, and they say when he swung it, it could smite 9 warriors with a single blow. But the other end of the club had a hazel twig that grew from it. And with that end, he could bring dead warriors back to life or restore them to health. Because the Dagda used to say, isn't it better to know how to heal a wound than how to inflict one? Isn't it better to know how to stop a war rather than to start one? Because isn't that easily enough done? And the third thing he brought, perhaps most important, was this beautiful, enormous harp made of oak. It was almost as big as he was, about 6 feet tall, and it had metal strings, and only the Dagda had the strength and the skill to play it. And the name of the harp was Una. You want to try it? Una, right? And they say when the Dagda played the harp, it helped the seasons to move as they should. From spring to summer, summer to fall, fall to winter. And they say when the Dagda played, it could assuage all grief. It could inspire any feeling. It could heal. But you see, word of the great harp, it spread to the arch enemies of the Tuatha Dé Danann, and they were known as the Four Morians. You want to try it? The Four Morians, and they were formidable people. Powerful, great warriors. And you see, the Four Morians, they were in Ireland before the Tuatha Dé Danann arrived. So they always looked upon the Tuatha Dé Danann as immigrants, you know. Aye, always taking our good Formorian jobs, aren't they? Always exhausting our Formorian social services, aren't they? You know. But then word came to the ears of the Formorians about this harp, Una. And they thought, you know, if we had the harp, we could make the seasons move any way we wanted to. We could inspire, instill any emotion. That'd be a good thing to have. And so didn't they entice the Tuatha Dé Danann into a battle? And they drew them forward. And they made the Tuatha Dé Danann believe that they were winning the battle. But in fact, what they did is the Formorians, they sent some warriors back to the stronghold of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And it was lightly guarded. And they were able to overtake the guards and steal the harp, Una. And they spirited it away deep into the night to their stronghold. And when the Tuatha Dé Danann got back, the Dagda said, the harp. They've taken the harp, they've taken Una, and I can't be who I am without that harp. We can't be who we are without that harp. I have to go get it. I have to go find it, and now. And who will go with me to find the harp now? Who will go with me to find the harp? Who will go with me to... The people then were as quiet as you are now. Until way in the back, a big arm went up, a huge arm, because it belonged to Lou of the Long Arm. And they called him that because he had what? You're listening so closely, that's good. Not only was it a long arm, but with that arm, he could cast a spear farther, faster, with greater accuracy and power than any warrior of the Tuatha Dé Danann. And then another arm went up and back, and that belonged to Angus Og the Artificer. You want to try that? Angus Og the Artificer. I'm just trying to keep you awake, okay? Angus Og the Artificer, he was like the Michelangelo, the Daedalus of his day, like the MacGyver of his day, you know. He was a good man to have along. And so in the deep of the night, the Dagda, Louis the Long Arm, and Angus Og, they went off to see if they could find the harp. And they went through hill and dale, and they came up a hill, and way in the distance, the Dagda, he could see a faint light. And he said, that's it. That's where they are. And they crept up on him as quietly as they could. And as they neared that big dun fort, they could hear the Formorians snoring, because they were famous for snoring, right? Can you help me out here? It was much louder, though, you know. And even louder. And it was so loud, you see, it allowed those three to come up to the oak door. And they opened it up, and no. The Dagda, he could see the beautiful harp, Una. And they had tethered it up to a wall there, tethered it to the outcropping stones, you see, like it was the trophy of some stag's head, you know. And the Dagda, he was beside himself, and he said, Una, please, please come, you know. He longed to have the harp, and the harp longed to be with him, because only he could play it. And the most amazing thing happened. The harp itself, it broke free from the wall. And this huge harp was just floating through the sky. But you see, the air moved across the strings, and it made music. And who do you think heard that? Exactly. And they woke up. And just as the harp came into the arms of the Dagda, the Fomorians raised their arms, and they came right for those three. And that's when Lou of the long arm, who was rather perceptive, he said, Dagda, I couldn't be happier that you and your harp have been reunited. However, I think that our little victory here, as well as our own lives, might be a little bit short-lived, you see. And the Dagda said, he said, I see why you're saying that, Lou. Indeed, indeed. Because there's nothing quite so formidable as a Fomorian warrior coming right at you with bloodlust and fire in their eyes and sharp weapons as well. But I want you to remember something, Lou of the long arm. And I want you to never, ever forget it. The power of the Fomorians is great, but the power of the Tuatha De Danann is great as well. And just like that, he took the harp and he plucked it so strongly. And a sound went out of such beauty and such mirth. And the warriors of the Fomorians, they hit it. And the sound was so beautiful and so sweet and so lovely and so happy, they couldn't help themselves. And they began to dance. And they dropped their weapons and they began to laugh and smile. And didn't they remember every sweet and lovely and tender thing that had ever happened to them? And they were embracing one another like they were children again and playing and dancing around. And they did that, and the song went on and on and on, but it finally did come to an end. And they remembered again. They were warriors on a mission, weren't they? And they picked up their arms, and they made right at those three. But once again, the dog, he plucked the strings. And this time a sound went out of such melancholy and such sadness. And isn't this world a sad place at times? And suddenly those men, they just began to weep. They remembered every wound they had taken, every wound they had given, every grief they had known. And doesn't grief slow us down? And it slowed them down, and they just began to weep, and tears just streamed down their faces. But at last that Dagda's tune, it came to an end. And they picked up their weapons. But once again the Dagda played. And this time it was a song. It was so sweet, it was a lullaby. And wouldn't you be a little tired after all of that weeping and all of that playing? You know? And they were absolutely exhausted. And with that sweet lullaby, these great Fomorian warriors, they just laid down on top of one another. And they went to sleep. But there's nothing as vulnerable as a warrior when he's asleep. And now came the time for the Dagda and Lou and Angus Og to finish off these Fomorians once and for all. And the Dagda, didn't he take his club there? And didn't Lou, he take the spear? And Angus Og, he unsheathed the sword. But then they watched. And the Dagda, he shouldered the great club. And Lou held back the spear. And Angus Og, he sheathed the sword. And the Dagda said, let him sleep, boys. Let him sleep. Perhaps he'll dream a dream of a time when the Tuatha De Danann and the Fomorians can meet somewhere other than a field of battle. Let him sleep, boys. And so it was that Angus Og and Lou the Long Arm and the Dagda, the great god, with Una in tow now, they made their way all the way back to their own Dunfort. And when they got there, they told everyone the exact tale that I'm telling you. And the people were so glad. They served a bit of mead, you see, a bit of wishkebah, and a few glasses of ale. And you know what? I think that might be a good thing to do for all of us right here and now. And so let's belly up to the bar. And let's celebrate the return of the great harp, Una. And have a drink, and we'll be back in about 10 minutes or so. Thank you. Thank you.
a little bit about the Portland Storytellers Guild, your host tonight. Gee. Wait, can we bring the lights up again a little tiny bit more? Thanks. So I can see faces. There you go. We have a story swap every month. This Zooming this currently on Zoom the third Sunday of each month at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock, right? Everybody is welcome. Just come to the website. If you're not a member of the Guild, come to the website and look up Story Swap, and you can see how to contact somebody to get into the Zoom. And if you're a member, we just send a note out to you anyway. So we do this every month, the second Saturday of every month, and we're so delighted that you're here and hope you come back again next month. Speaking of which, we have a drawing. Does everybody wanted to be in the drawing get their card in? Because I'm going to draw one, and whoever I draw will get free tickets for next month. It's from the Foxmans for Jill Bowers. Yeah. Big bucks, yeah. So now it's also just a little quick note. We have a visiting storyteller from New Hampshire in town. He's going to be doing a house concert tomorrow in the Alberta Arts District at 6:30. And you can get more information about his show at andydavisstoryteller.com. andydavisstoryteller.com. And so, we might welcome him to the West Coast by showing up at his story. And with that, I'm going to start the next part of the show with introducing Juliana Person.
Around the time I turned 29, I was living in a really weird sort of limbo. I'd finished a year of chemotherapy, and then I had to wait a couple months to see if it had worked, if the cancer was actually gone. I was optimistic, but scared. I was scared that the answer was no. That would mean more chemo, maybe radiation, more being stuck at home with my parents, and more of having to put all of my dreams and plans on hold. Bizarrely, though, I was also kind of scared that the answer was yes. If the cancer was gone, that would mean I was free to... I had no idea. It was the same sort of dread I'd had about graduating from school. I mean, I want to be finished. Of course I want to be finished. But in some ways, it would be simpler if I wasn't. During treatment, I had almost no responsibilities. My parents and my medical team were taking care of me, and all I had to do was go to appointments and follow directions. Stepping out into the real world and taking charge of my own destiny seemed daunting. With this new second chance, I could reinvent myself and become a whole new person, but who should I be? I'd always thought of myself as being strong and adventurous, but was that still true? It didn't feel like it. I was in the worst shape of my life and didn't feel like I could trust my body anymore. It had betrayed me. And now I got so tired so fast. I kept overestimating myself and falling short. I was really apprehensive about any physical activity where there was even a remote possibility of danger. So what do you do if you have a little bit of time on your hands and you're worried that your adventurous spirit may have withered alongside your tumor? There's only one thing you can do. You go on an adventure. I signed up with an organization called First Descents, who provide outdoor adventure to young adults who are cancer survivors. And I had a week of whitewater kayaking in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I settled into the lodge amid majestic mountains and clear, fast-flowing rivers and met my fellow campers. 12 survivors under 40. We were all at different stages of our journey, me still bald, fresh out of chemo, and one girl who had had her cancer more than a decade ago. But we were all there on the same mission, to connect with our post-cancer selves. One of the first orders of business was being issued our gear. I got a kayak and a paddle and a life jacket and a helmet and a wetsuit, but also a fleece hat, a fleece jacket, and a splash jacket, and some wool socks and wetsuit boozies to warm my head and shoulders, knees, and toes, because that water was extremely cold. The first day, we stuck to the basics. We learned how to adjust the fit of our kayak, how to stretch the spray skirt over the opening of the cockpit, and some paddle strokes, and what to do if we flipped over. Kayakers with more experience can just roll themselves back upright again, but as beginners, we learned the wet exit, which is exactly what it sounds like. You pull the strap of the spray skirt to exit the kayak and get all wet. Before hitting real whitewater on day 2, they gave us some dire-sounding warnings about the dangers that we might face on the river. Foot entrapment if you stand up in fast-moving water. Down trees that can become strainers or sweepers, rocks. I realized it was important, but the safety talk got me really nervous. What if I get too tired and I can't keep up? What if I flip over and hit my head on one of these numerous dangerous rocks? What if this survivor trip ends up being how I die? That would be ironic. What if I just changed my mind and asked to go back to the lodge? I didn't ask to go back. That would be way too embarrassing. I got out on the river, and it was amazing. The trees and mountains looked even taller from down in the kayak. It sits so low that I felt like I was part of the river. The cold water numbed my hands as I paddled and splashed in my face in the rapids. It was more exciting than any ride at Disneyland. My courage failed me a little bit on day 4. I flipped over in one of the rapids. This had happened enough at that point where it wasn't an immediate cause for concern. I knew the drill. I tucked my head, I tapped the sides of my boat to alert others, reached forward for the strap of the spray skirt, and it wasn't there. It should be right in front of me, but it wasn't there. I frantically felt around the rim of the cockpit, but I could not find that strap. I had put the spray skirt on upside down, with the strap underneath where I couldn't reach it. Oh no. Back during treatment, I sometimes worried about dying, but it was a sort of vague, back of my mind, I may or may not live to see 30 gnawing anxiety. This was different. This was primal, pit of my stomach. I may have just breathed my last breath, blind panic. I am trapped, and I'm upside down underwater, and it's swirling all around, and the way out is missing, and right here, right now, I'm about to die! I managed to wrench that spray skirt off without the strap, tumbled out of the kayak, got to the surface, coughing and sputtering. Unlike my previous flips, this time I was not ready to get back in my boat. A bunch of water had gone up my nose, and I was really shaken up from what may or may not have actually been, but certainly felt like a near-death experience. I was done for the day. My kayak and I were hauled up onto the support raft, and I was a passenger for the last couple miles. The huge sense of relief I felt getting in that raft was quickly replaced by feeling disappointed in myself as we reached the takeout site. My fellow campers were all chattering away about how much fun that last rapid had been, and I'd missed out. Yes, I'd been tired. Yes, I'd been scared, but I could have continued. I had chosen to skip those last few rapids. Is this who I am now? Am I the kind of person who sits back and watches while other people have adventures? I had a terrible feeling that is exactly who I would become if I allowed myself to give up. No, I refuse to be that kind of a person. That's not who I was, and sure as heck not who I want to be. I had failed that day on the river, but I was determined not to do so again. Not on this kayaking trip and not in life in general. No more stepping back. No more skipping the rapids. No more backing down from a challenge. I got into my kayak the next day with a lot of trepidation, but some determination as well. My goal for the last day on the river was to keep paddling, always keep moving forward, and not allow myself to drift, literally or figuratively. It was exhilarating to be back down at water level, getting splashed by those rapids, and my confidence improved as the day went on. Towards the end of the afternoon, we hit our biggest rapid yet, a huge wave train. We went at it one at a time, with several kayak lengths in between each person. The butterflies started to build as I waited. Violent, angry, man-eating butterflies. But at last, it was my turn. I started paddling. I picked up speed. I was feeling good until I noticed that the kayak ahead of me was still in the rapid and not moving forward. She had somehow got turned around and was now surfing this wave. At this point, I'm already in the rapid. There's no turning back. I looked at her, my eyes got wide. Fudge bananas, I can't stop. She looked back at me with a similar expression. Shiitake mushrooms, I can't move. I tried to steer around her. Maybe I could avoid her. No. We collided and both flipped over. I had a second of panic, remembering the terrifying experience from the day before. But when I reached forward and felt that strap, I calmed down. I've got this. I pulled the strap, wet exited, and we got to the shore. She and I laughed and high-fived each other before tipping all the water out of our boats and getting back down the river. And that was when it hit me. I may not be as strong as I used to be or as fit as I used to be, but I'm still me. I can still be adventurous. I can still be brave. I felt ready for whatever might be ahead of me on that river or in life. When I got home, I had my scan, and it was clear. I was free to pursue my dreams and plans. I still didn't quite know what those were, but I was ready to find out. Thank you. Now I'd like to welcome to the stage Ken Iverson.
I used to live in San Francisco. I lived right near Golden Gate Park, which was almost indescribably beautiful, different parts of it. I lived close enough I could go over to the park and walk almost every day if I wanted to. But to get to work, I had to walk those San Francisco streets. The buses roared by and the fumes. And the city noise was constant and unending. Then I got a letter. It's from my Uncle Bob. He said, "Dear Ken, why don't you plan on spending your next vacation with me on my farm? 2 weeks out of the city would be great." I wrote back and said, "I'll see you on my vacation." When my vacation came, I wasted no time getting out of the city and getting to Uncle Bob's farm. He lived just down the coast, a little beyond Half Moon Bay, had a beautiful farm, and we spent that first night sitting on the porch of his farmhouse, enjoying good hot coffee, good conversation, and gazing up at those stars that you can never see when you're in a city. The next morning, I thought, I want to go for a walk. Just get out in the country. There's a dirt road that went right by the farm. So I went out and started walking down that road. I only got a couple of steps, and I looked and went, oh, the field across from Uncle Bob's farm was freshly mowed. I just stood there going, inhaling. The air smelled so good. I just stood there for a long time, just breathing that beautiful, clean air. And then I started down the road, and it seemed like every farmhouse I went past, people were sitting out on the porch, having coffee. We'd wave. What a place he had settled. It was beautiful. And I went on down the road and passed several farmhouses, and I came to one that had a sign in the front yard. I was kind of puzzled by the sign. It said, "For sale, talking dog." Dogs don't talk. But the sign got me to thinking, I'd love to have a dog. If I had a dog living in the city, it would be so much more fun. A talking dog would be really great. I saw the farmer, I went over and said, "Hey, I'm interested in your, dog, but you and I both know dogs don't talk." And the farmer, he looked at me and he said, "Yeah, I used to think that too." He said, "Listen, dogs around back on the porch. You can go see them, and if you're interested, come on back and we'll talk." And he turned back to his work. So I made my way around the back of the farmhouse, and there on the porch was an old hound dog. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't an old hound dog I was expecting. And I took a good look at him, and he was asleep, his head down on his paws, and he was snoring. And I looked at him, and I thought, he's not much to look at. I kind of mumbled out loud. I guess that woke him, because one eye popped open, and then the other, and next thing you know, he sat up and stretched. I said, "Boy, you can bark all you want. The farmer out front, he told me you can actually talk. So, say something." "He told you? He told you I can talk? Oh boy, oh boy. Well, that lets the puppy out of the kennel, don't it? Oh yeah." So wait a minute. You're talking, but dogs don't talk. Well, apparently some of us do. And I gotta say, no offense, but you're nothing much to look at yourself, sport. So, but if you can talk, what are you doing here? "I'm retired." No, people, we work and then we retire. Dogs don't work. Have you ever worked? Yeah. 35 years with the agency. Said, "Well, 5 of your years, 35 of mine." I said, "What agency would hire a dog?" He looked around. The CIA. But we prefer to just call it the agency. So you worked for the CIA? Ruff. The agency, please. The agency. My pappy could talk, and he worked for the agency. And when I was born, they found out I could talk. Right away, they enrolled me in their Covert Canine Crusader candidate camp. Eventually, I graduated. 6C, Certified Crypto-Capable Covert Canine Crusader. If you don't know, crypto is actually a code. So, you were a spy? Oh yeah. What'd you do? Well, mostly I'd just go with diplomats. We'd go to a meeting, and the diplomat would have me lay down and pretend to be asleep. And then he'd go to the bathroom, and I'd be pretending to be asleep, and I'd listen. And afterwards, we'd go back, and he'd debrief me, and I could tell him all the secrets the other diplomats didn't want him to know. That's incredible. You must have traveled all over the world. Oh yeah, all over the world. Well, why would you retire? Well, too much travel. Plus, my diet. You cannot get good quality dog food on the road. Plus, I wanted to have a family. Well, the agency very nicely. They transferred me into the wonderfully co-ed Covert Canine Crusaders Consensual Cohabitation Community. That was fun. I met my girlfriend there. And the farmer here, he came and adopted us. See, the building looked just like an animal shelter. He didn't know we were CIA. He didn't know we could talk. So we went here to the farm, raised a couple of litters. None of the kids could talk, so they're all out at other farms. Well, my sweetheart passed away about a year ago. That's when things started going downhill. At first, I'd sit on the couch next to the farmer, and we'd watch reruns. Like Lassie. Oh, Lassie's good stuff. But then he put on Jeopardy. That was my downfall. Oh, I love Jeopardy. I love Jeopardy. And I got a little too excited watching it. And I started jumping up and down on the couch, and then I shouted out the answer. That's when he learned I could talk. That set him back, way back. Well, after that, it was kind of hard to find shows we both liked. He wanted Green Acres. I wanted Homeland. I couldn't stand the channel hopping back and forth. It's hard on the dog's eyes. So I set the TV for Homeland and buried the remote. He found it. I should have buried it deeper. That was when he invited me to come out here and sleep on the porch until other arrangements could be made. And that's when he put up the for sale sign. Well, gosh, I mean, your life sounds so exciting. I'd love to have a dog, and to have a talking dog would be incredible. And I live right near a park in the city, and we could go there every day and walk. Oh, Sundays. Sundays. Sundays might be hard for you because, see, Sundays, I just like to settle in with the New York Times. Crosswords. Oh, he says, crosswords. I love crosswords. Oh. He says, Will Short, that crosswords genius with the New York Times? Oh, yeah, he's CIA. Pure CIA all the way. Oh, yeah. Well, he sends out coded messages in crosswords all over the world every Sunday. Oh, I'm your person for crosswords. Will Short taught me code and crosswords. Oh, I want to go home with you. I'd like to take you home with me. Let's go talk to the farmer. By the way, have you got a name? Oh, yeah, Fred. Government issue name. It's actually an acronym. Yeah, it stands for Faithful, Reasonably Educated Dog. Come on, Fred. We went up and found the farmer and said, I want to buy your dog. I mean, you were right. I apologize for doubting you, but you were right. He can talk, and I mean, he's ex-CIA. How much do you want for him? Well, you go as high as $50? $50? Sure. That's cheap for a dog. And you got a dog that talks and was in the CIA, and you're going to sell him to me for $50? Is there something wrong with him? Wrong? Oh, heck yeah, there's something wrong. He can talk. That's pretty amazing. Trouble is, he can't stop talking. Completely ruined Jeopardy for me. Plus, I mean, ex-CIA. Really? The real problem here is you can't believe a word that dog says. Is that all? I was afraid it was something serious. Here's your money. I'll take them. See, I live in the city, and I have friends that come over every single week, and, well, we watch Jeopardy together. Sometimes we get so excited, we jump up and shout out the answers. He's going to fit right in. If we get going, we can get back to my Uncle Bob's in time to watch Jeopardy. Come on, Fred. My faithful, reasonably educated dog. Let's go home. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to please welcome Barb Fankhauser.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay, great. Thank you very much. I arrived in Breckenridge, Colorado in the fall of 1972. I had just quit what I thought would always be my dream job. I've been writing ad copy for one of the biggest advertising agencies in the world. But one of the account men accused me of being hostile towards the Keebler elves. And when I openly expressed doubt as to whether the world really needed round saltines when we had perfectly good square saltines, I thought I needed to rethink my career path. And what better place to do it than the ski slopes of Colorado? Now, Mouse arrived in Breckenridge the following spring. Mouse was one of 4 kittens born to a semi-feral cat under the back deck of the town doctor. And when I laid eyes on Mouse the first time, I thought she was the most beautiful kitten I had ever seen. She was overall a bluish-gray slate, and she had eyes to match. And she was tiny. Even full-grown, she never got more than 6 or 7 pounds. But she came into the world with the heart of a lion. She knew exactly how she wanted to live and was not willing to settle for anything less. And I fell in love with that little wild heart of hers, and so I took her home to live with me. Now, at the time, my husband and I were living in an old house in Breckenridge, left over from the gold mining dredge boat era, which only meant that the floors were not level and there was very little insulation. And Breckenridge sits at 10,000 feet up in the Rockies. Winter comes early, September, lasts into June, and in the heart of winter, nighttime temperatures can drop down to 50, 60 below zero. Well, I came home from work one night. It was just before the holidays, and it was pitch dark already at 5 o'clock. And I came into the house, and there was Mouse sitting by the door. That was Mouse's name, and Mouse was meowing to get out. And I was her doorman, and I wasn't responding very quickly. I looked at Mouse, and I said, you know what? The temperature has been dropping all day. It's bitter cold. It's not fit for man or beast out there. You do not want to go out. And went into the kitchen to start making dinner. Well, Mouse was not having any of that. She came in and she did that second thing that cats do when they want their way, is weaving in and out of your legs trying to kill you to get their way. And it was clear I was not going to get dinner made with Mouse interfering like this, so I said, okay, you want to go out? I'll give you 10 minutes. Open the door and Mouse is gone. Well, a little while later, my husband came home and he poured a couple glasses of wine, and I was making dinner, and we were chatting about our day, and time passed, and there was a knock at the door, and I opened it, and it was a woman from up the street, and she said, "Don't you own a cat?" Oh, Mouse. I had totally forgotten about little Mouse. I said, yes, what's happened? And she said, well, I was coming down the street, and I saw the dogs playing with something. Now, in Breckenridge, when you say the dogs, what that means is everybody in town owns a dog. No one in town owns a leash. And everybody just opens the doors, the dogs go out, and the dogs had all formed this big kind of club together. They ran everywhere. Everybody knew the dogs by name. I mean, they weren't like they were a threat or anything, but they did run in packs. And anyway, she said, I saw the dogs playing with something. I went over to see what it was, and I think it's your cat. And they've slobbered all over it and then iced up. And so I took your cat over to Andrea's across the street to see if she could thaw her out. That didn't sound good. So I went across the street. Now, Andrea was interesting. She had arrived that summer from Texas. And I don't know if it was a trait of Andrea or if a trait of all Texans, but the woman traveled with one of everything. And when I went into her house, she had, these big metal hair dryers that used to be in women's hair salons. They could roll them around. She had one of these, and she had it up over the stool with a pillow on it and what looked like a block of ice. And she was blasting warm air onto Mouse, who was totally encrusted with snow and ice and just stiff, stiff. And her little eyes were glazed over. And so we sat on each side of the stool, and we, as the warm air kind of began to thaw things, we broke the ice and the chips of snow off her. And when we finally got down, she was just her fur, but she was still just, it was like you didn't want to touch or too much, because things that would normally bend, it just felt like they might just sort of snap off instead. Anyway, so we got her done and dried out a bit, and so Andrea wrapped her in a towel and sent me home with Mouse. I got home and I came into the house and was like, what do you do with a frozen cat? I looked around. I thought maybe I could toast her. So I took her into the bedroom and I slipped her into the bed between the sheets and turned the electric blanket up to 5. And then I was like, well, here I am with the cat, and I'll go watch a little TV to sort of distract myself. And I could see the bed from the living room, so I kept watching to see if the bedclothes moved at all. And every time there was a commercial break, I'd go and I'd kind of lift up and I'd look in there and just listen. Finally, about 10 o'clock, I lifted the covers up and I heard this little meow. It's like, Mouse is alive. And she began to crawl her way out from under the covers, and she jumped down on the bedroom floor. And you know how I told you she had this little wildness and she didn't like to be confined or held or enclosed in anything? And she turned on and she looked at me like she was miffed to find herself in such a situation. And then she stalked into the kitchen and looked at her empty bowl and looked at me again. And I was so excited to see that she was up and alive that I opened a can of human tuna fish to give to her, and some milk, and she ate it all up and went back into the bedroom, jumped up on the bed and curled up and went back to sleep on top of the electric blanket where she normally slept. Well, the next morning I got up and got ready to go to work, and I went out into the living room, and here was Mouse sitting by the front door. Not a sneeze, not a sniffle, not a cough, nothing. It just let me out. Well, I looked at her and I thought, I could spend all winter trying to turn you into an indoor cat, but that's just going to frustrate me and annoy you. So, okay, open the door, and phew, off she went. Well, that night she came home, slept on the electric blanket like usual. She must have found ways to, shelter when it got really cold, and she learned to avoid the dogs because the rest of the winter went that way. Every morning she'd go out, every night she'd come back, sleep on the electric blanket. So life went on. Well, in the spring, my husband and I moved to another house a little out of town that had a lot better ventilation. And Mouse continued her routine, going out every morning and coming back every night. And the summer wore on, and out she'd go, and in she'd come, and all until one night she didn't come back. And I waited about a week and concluded that she'd probably encountered something fiercer than herself. I look at the animals that have shared their journeys with me, and I can map my life from my relationship with them. I mean, when I was a kid, those little dogs and cats that came through my life, they were toys, they were playthings, they were animated things you could dress up and put them in your baby carriage and roll them down the street. My teen years, they were fashion accessories. I called those the poodle years. But then when I finally reached maturity, I saw them as the big-hearted, loving companions that they are. But it was little Mouse, who took that little furry paw and batted my ego out of the way hard enough for finally I could see them as the teachers they are. The little furry Yodas that come into our life, and if we're paying attention and our hearts and our minds are open, we get the lessons that they bring. Now, I could have tried to make Mouse into an indoor cat, made her spend her life. It would have been a longer life, but it would have been a life lived on the wrong side of the door, and that would have broken her little heart. And that little wild heart is where we met. I didn't know my own wild heart until I met Mouse. And like her, I could have gone back to Chicago to that job, and I would have had a good life selling unnecessary things to people. But I would have been living my life on the wrong side of the door. And Mouse showed me that. And so from then, ever since, when I come to places in my life, where, we all come to these places where we have to make a choice. There's a crossroad. We weigh this and we weigh that, and being a Virgo, I make lists. And when I'm done, I always remember, though, to ask myself, what is it my wild heart wants? Thank you so much. Now I'm going to have Rick Huddle come back up here to take us out.
Thanks, that was lovely. All right, yeah, I have one more song to share with y'all today, and this is the song is from the same kind of show that I did where I mashed up these children's books with rock songs from the 80s, and so this may sound familiar to you as well. And I'm not going to tell you the book that it's from. If you have read children's literature over the past 50 years, you probably know this one. But it's when I do this show with kids, this is like the closing dance song, and so feel free to dance if you want, or dance in your seat. And there's a few American Sign Language signs that I teach as part of this. So I'll teach you a couple here. So the first one we'll do is a mouse. And so this is, you just take your finger and rub it on your nose, like a little mouse nose. This is mouse. Very good. And then we'll do kittens, too. You pull your kitten whiskers. Very good. Very good. We'll do bears. Make your bear claws. Pull them down. Bears. Great. And just two more here. I like this one a lot. It's green. So make the sign for G, which is this, and you wiggle it. This is green. Great. And then the last one is sleep. This is very dramatic. You take your hand up like this, and you pull it down, and you close your eyes. Sleep. Great. All right. Don't say it out loud, but does anybody think they know what this book is already? Oh, good. Okay, good. All right. Well, yeah, would you go ahead and hit play? Thanks. The song is from Dramarama. They wrote the original. Oh, no worries. Yeah. Okay. That's all right. That's good. Do you need the passcode or anything? No. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll do some more science then. Okay. So you can learn some more while we're going here. Let's see. I'll take anybody know what book is? Very good. Yeah, this is book. Very good. Very good. This is one of my favorites. It's argue, which is like you take your hands like this. You don't know what you're talking about. No, you don't. This is argue or fight in the song. Great. And let's see. Good night. Oh, geez. Now I just gave it away. Oh, man. All right. Well, anyway, good night is the same as thank you. Good. And then night. Good night. There we go. Great. Anybody know Dad? Yeah. And this is Dad up here. And this is Dad. This is Mom. Mom's not in this song, but Dad is. And so the song is kind of written from the point of view of a youngster who loves this book. But but it's a song, or it's a book that I have read a lot of times to my kids because they love it. It's such a beautiful book. Should we keep going with more signs? Oh, yeah, sure. Excuse me. That's right. Oh, yeah. Are you getting a signal? No. No signal? Maybe something's like not. Okay, this is the freestyle dance part. Okay, time to say goodnight to everything in the great green room. Good night, bears. Good night, chairs. Good night, moon. Good night, red balloon. Red balloon. Red balloon. Show me bowl. Show me comb. Show me brush. Show me quiet little lady whispering hush. I wanna see that little mouse who goes squeak. Then I'll go to sleep. Go to sleep. Go to sleep. Freestyle now. Will I ever sleep tonight? I'm still awake, yeah, I'm not done. What about the kittens? What about the clocks? Don't forget the socks. Good night, socks. Good night, socks. Show me phone. Show me fire. Show me mouse. Show me all the colored curtains in that little toy house. I wanna say good night to nobody. Then I'll go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. One more time, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Freestyle now. Okay, we're gonna bring it down a little bit. Maybe the kids are actually gonna fall asleep. Maybe so. Get your covers, we're gonna pull them up because it's gonna get dark. Here we go. It's getting dark and I know it's late. Your eyes look heavy under their weight. You're looking sleepy, Dad, but that's okay. A few more minutes, you'll be on your way. We read this book every night. If we don't, I'm gonna put up a fight. By now you know every single rhyme, but I gotta hear it 20 more times. Show me bowl, show me comb, show me brush, show me quiet little lady whispering hush. I wanna see the little mouse who will squeak, then I'll go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Please go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep. Oh my God. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Thanks. I'd like to invite all the storytellers to come on up for one more big round of applause. Keep your hands going. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming out on such a special night. Have a great rest of your evening.